All right. We're going to start by going through, and I added a challenge to miles per gallon. Because I realized I didn't have anything this week that did any decisions. So we need to do some decisions. A challenge is kind of a like above and beyond. Sometimes I give extra credit, sometimes I don't. If it is definitely extra credit, I put extra credit. But the challenge is not that hard. We are going to start with me giving you the outline of the program, as I have in the past. As we go, I'm going to do less and less of this, so you have to create your own thinking on it. So I am going to select it and Control C to copy, because I like shortcut keys. I like, as the guy said last night, I like hacking keys. Hacking and shortcuts that's a good way to put it. Hacking and shortcuts are the same thing. So I'm going to my USB drive. I'm opening up my Spring 25 folder, double clicking to open up my Python. I'm going into week 2 because this is week 2. I'm going to right click on it and go to show more options. By making Windows 11 more friendly, I don't know if that's what they were thinking of, but they added an extra click to open with code. I don't know. I don't count clicks, but the fewer clicks I think are better. Now I've got this copied. I'm going to make a new program. I don't know if I just called it MPG or I even told you what to call it. Oh, MPG. Yeah, sometimes I got new good names. I'm going to right click in my file area and do new file, mpg.py. Press the enter key. There's my blank program. Okay. Copilot's turned off, so I don't get interference. Control V, victory. One of my students once said that they could remember it was paste because V is like a glue pot, a pot of glue. I don't know if that works for you or not, but it worked for her. I figured they did it just because Control V was right next to C and X, copy and cut. All right, so I've already outlined the program. All programs you're ever going to do are going to have 3 big divisions. You're going to have input of some sort. Something has to come into the program. You're going to calculate and do something with that. You're going to process that information somehow. And in order for the user to know anything happened, you have to have output. So all of our programs are going to have those 3 things. So get the starting mileage, get the ending mileage, get the number. That's all input. And I'm just going to make a little like that and do input and make another like that. So you can't miss it. That's input. This next part is let's do some calculating or processing. Typically you say calculating or I say calculating, but this is where the processing takes place. You do something, calculate, okay. Calculate. There we go. And this is supposed to be everybody doing it at the same time, if you want. What's the next part? After I calculate, the next part is the general term is output. Because you're not always going to print, sometimes you may export a file, sometimes you might display a chart, sometimes you might play a game, but it's always output from the computer. So something goes in, we do some sort of processing or calculating, and then the output comes out. What we're going to do, not next week, but maybe the week after, is we're going to start doing loops where we can repeatedly go through the input, calculate, output, input, calculate, output, which this actually is like a game loop. Doesn't a game, can you only click once in the game and it's done? No. Games have loops. So they're constantly looking for input, they're constantly calculating, they're constantly displaying output, but games have the same 3 basic pieces. And we'll do some simple games in Py game. We'll do some little 2-day games. Okay, So now we know what we've got to do. We need to assign this to a variable. So what would be my code at this point? What would be good stuff to put in here? What do I need?
Mileage.
Yeah, mileage sounds like a good name. And then yeah, if you want to get decimal places. Oh, did I say that? Oh, I did, didn't I? Because we're going to use rounding, aren't we? Okay, I forgot about that. So we need float. Float's going to convert whatever is in between, which is going to be a string in our case, to a float number. Float meaning the decimal place has to do with how computers calculate decimals. Computers really can't do analog division and multiplication, so they have to approximate it because computers, it's either a 0 or a 1. It can't go out to infinity. And of course, we need input.
And we should change that, change mileage to start, and then when you do the next one to end.
Yeah, that's good.
When you're
that makes more sense
for the starting mileage, and then the next one asks for ending mileage.
So we could, for the prompt, just put in starting mileage.
Yeah.
Right. That makes sense. And that's what'll happen. You've got the program outlined, and then you think, oh, just like Sean did, I have two things I have to get. So maybe I want to change my variables so they make sense. So start mileage or starting mileage. I'm not going to type all this out again because I have to do it 3 more times. So I selected that, Control C, paste it, and I'm going to paste it here because I'm going to do the same thing each time. Except this one's going to be end mileage. I could do ending. I'm just going to do end mileage just because I know that's what Sean wants. Well, it's kind of what you said, wasn't it? Didn't you say end or ending?
Well, either or.
Yeah.
Okay.
Same thing. And then we need gallons. We could say gallons used. Now notice I'm using a process. I'm going through and doing this program exactly how I've done every other program up to this point. I figure out what I'm going to do. I get my input first. I do my calculations, then I do my output. I'm going to do it the same way for the entire semester. I'm always going to do it in this sort of fashion. I'm going to put in a to-do to think through what I need, and then I'm going to do it. And I don't know, do we need number of gallons? Not really. We could just do gallons, probably, or you could do number of gallons. Doesn't matter, as long as you're consistent and it makes sense and it looks nice and clean. See how nice and clean this works? I have spaces between these, so it's easy to read. Some of this is just preference. I like to have more spaces because it is easier to read for me. You could condense it all together, but it is harder to read. For me, I mean, I think it's harder to read. All right, so now we've got our mileage, we've got our end mileage, we've got our gallons. It says, calculate the total mileage. Does that give us the name of our variable? I think so. So we have total mileage. What is our calculation for total mileage? Exactly. Very good. Now you'll notice that when you start typing in end, at some point the right name shows up. And this is like autocomplete. If you press the tab key, it'll fill it in for you. Which is quicker than just typing in the whole thing and then maybe mistyping it. Okay, so that minus start mileage, there it is. That'll give me total mileage, and I've assigned the result of that calculation to the variable total mileage. Oh, and I gave this one away. I should have just said calculate MPG, shouldn't I? Well, there's enough to think about when you get started in programming, and we're only in the 2nd week, so it doesn't hurt if I give you some calculations, does it? So what would be a good name for a variable here? Yes?
Yeah, like when I was doing it, I was confused because they said total. So what do you have to do minus to get it?
To calculate MPG, which, yeah, sounds like a good variable name. We went so many miles, let's say we went 100 miles and we used 2 gallons of gas. So that means we used a gallon. If we have 2 gallons, we divide it by 2, the miles by 2, and that gives us 50, which means we did 50 miles per gallon. So we would take our total mileage, how far we drove, divide it by how many gallons. And now we have how many miles we went divided by gallons, which gives us the amount of gallons per, it gives us the miles per gallon. Sorry, I almost said that wrong. Now, we added a new function. We are going to round off this information. Python has a round function. The first part is what we're going to round off. The second part is how many decimal places we're going to round it off to. So I'm going to start with just printing miles per gallon. Oh, I should put my F string in there to get started. F, semicolon, yeah. This is always the same. Oh, I need this down here, don't I? There we go. Let's put it in the right place. All right, let's run it and do something. So if I type in 125.637, I'm being very accurate here. And 548 times, I have a really accurate odometer. Most cars don't have one like that. We'll say I run 12.56 gallons. Pretty accurate, isn't it? No matter what I type in, it's going to come back with a whole bunch of decimal places. Let's try it again with just some other numbers. Let's see, 102.5, 2521.3, and we'll just say we used 5 gallons. Well, what we want to do is we're going to round the value of miles per gallon so that we only show 2 decimal places. It's going to be 83.76. So if the value after the amount of the decimal places that we want to round it to is 5 and above, we go to the next highest number. If it's below 5, we go to the lowest number. So if this was 3, we'd put 74 because it goes from the midpoint. Now let's round this off. So we do round, well, not found. Round is built into Python. It's a function that rounds off floats, and we want to round off the value to 2.
So you want to set that equal to a value.
What?
So you need to set that equal to a variable.
It is. Oh, you mean to finish it up? Yes. Because the round rounds it right there and it returns a rounded number. But yes, you're right. We have to store it someplace. And can we do this, do you think? Sure. We can override a variable because it's a variable. It can change. Or you could say MPG rounded, but we really don't need to. Well, let's see what it looks like. Starting, ending through. Oh. Or have unstable internet here is what I was saying earlier. So some better get done with class fast, right? Okay. So say we did 5 gallons. There, it rounds it off nicely. And so it was likely that it was 35.2, something above 5. It was in there. Now the difference between the F formatting that we did before is all we're doing is displaying it to 2 decimal places. The value stays the same. In this case, the value is actually rounded to 2 decimal places. So we're changing the value. This value has all the decimal places. This value only has 2 decimal places. So we really, unless we end up with like 50,000 miles per gallon, we really don't need any formatting on this. I just put the F string just out of habit. How did I display it? Oh, your car gets so many miles per gallon. Okay. Your car gets so many MPG. There. We really don't need to do it this way. We could do it the other way. I'm just going to stick with this. Let's make a line there. There. That's called clean code, except that this is over here and this is over here. So that's not so clean. It is much cleaner if you line things up. Clean code means that you've done it in such a way that it's very easy to read. It's consistent. Everything has the same alignment. All right, shall we test it out? Let's take it for a test run. Starting mileage, 200. Ending mileage, 500. Gallons, 2. Whoa, my car gets good mileage, doesn't it? Yeah, I have a hydrogen-powered car that is supplemented by solar power, and my solar panel is like half a mile wide, apparently, to gather that much energy. That is the complete assignment to that point. Let me stop my recording.